Hello and welcome to the 5th series of Forthright,
the podcast with, for and by women writers.
If you enjoy the show, please give us a follow and a review wherever you listen to your podcasts.
We've got some fantastic writers for you coming up. We hope you enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Forthright podcast. I'm Sam.
And I'm Anna, and today we're absolutely delighted to have Kate Lord-Browne. Hello, Kate.
Hi, how are you?
Really good, thank you. So Kate Lord-Browne was a finalist in ITV's The People's Author Contest, and her novel The Perfume Garden, which has been published in 9 languages, was shortlisted for the Romantic Novel of the Year 2014. Her books have been top 10 bestsellers in UK, Canada and several European countries. In 2020, she was highly recommended in the RNA Elizabeth Goudge Trophy. Kate has also written editorial, reviews and regular columns for The Traveller, Conde Nast, Good Housekeeping, Blueprint, The Bookseller, Bookbag, Writers News, Art Business, Gulf Times, Woman, The Daily Telegraph, Sunday Express and others. Wow. She wrote the first book club column in the Middle East for 2 years, introducing a host of writers to the region through the pages of Ahlan. After many years of living overseas, she's returned to the wild and beautiful southwest of England, where she grew up. Welcome, Kate.
Hello, lovely to be here.
So Kate is going to read from The Golden Hour for us. From Cairo, 1939, on the eve of war, and then 30 years later to 1970s Beirut, on the eve of yet another conflict. The Golden Hour is an epic dual timeline story which interweaves glory-seeking desert archaeologists, priceless treasures, Nefertiti's tomb, and the decadent cabarets of World War II Cairo, with restless expat lives in Bohemian Beirut. Archaeologist Lucy Fitzgerald's mother is dying. She has also been lying. As her home, the Paris of the East, Beirut, teeters on the brink of the war in the 70s, Polly Fitzgerald has one last story to tell from her deathbed. It's the story of her childhood best friend Juno and their life in 30s Cairo. Lucy travels home to be with her dying mother and discovers the truth about her family, Juno's work and their shared search for the greatest undiscovered tomb of all, Nefertiti's. From the cities to the deserts, this transporting and moving story of a lost generation transformed by war is a study of great love and sacrifice in all its forms. I'm really, looking forward to hearing your reading. So if you could just let us know what part of the book you're going to be reading from.
Sure. I'm going to read to you from the prologue, so from the very opening of the book. And we join Polly and Juno in Cairo in the summer of 1939.
Perfect.
Come on, take my hand, Juno says. Have you done this before? Polly shields her eyes from the desert sun. No, I was waiting for you. Polly looks uncertainly up the soaring face of the Great Pyramid of Giza. 450 feet above her, the people near the top look like ants. She wishes Fitz was here. He'd give her confidence. She's dying to say, you go ahead, Ju, I'm happy waiting here, but she can't let her down. Trust me, Juno calls. Polly scrambles up the first couple of blocks and gazes up at Juno towering above her in a white shirt and khakis, a canvas bag slung across her body. Her shining blonde hair falls forward, a halo framing her face. Juno and Polly scale Khufu's Great Pyramid, helping one another up again and again until after 15 minutes, Juno leaps ahead, standing on the platform at the top with her arms outstretched to the warm peach sky. Make mine a gin sling, she cries. Juno hauls Polly up. God, this view, isn't it marvellous? I've been dying to climb this pyramid. Not literally, I hope, Ju. Sit down, be careful. Polly sits with her back pressed securely against the hot limestone, legs and arms trembling with exertion, with fear. She has a horrible feeling going down will be worse. I always forget you've got a shocking head for heights, Juno says, sitting beside her. She focuses her camera on the silver palm-fringed edge of the Nile, a river of liquid light. Far away, a group of people in jewel bright robes dot the waterline like gemstones, turquoise and pink. Isn't it beautiful? Has anybody actually died climbing this? Polly interrupts, gripping the edge of the stone with white knuckles. Oh, probably, Juno says cheerfully. When it was built 4,500 years ago, the sides were cased in smooth white limestone. Can you imagine how it must have shone? Polly has the ghastly feeling her feet are sliding as if the pyramid were a living thing, flattening beneath her clenched toes. Each stone is slippery with sand, and they will have to jump down again and again. There's nothing to hold on to if I fall. Juno nudges her. Don't worry, I'll hold your hand. She opens her palm and shows the fine white scar there. Polly does the same, and Juno laces her fingers together. I'm so happy you're here, Paul. It hasn't been as much fun as perhaps it's been from my letters. I know. Polly waits for Juno to look at her. Is it Alec? He hasn't... Juno hesitates. She lets out a sigh and rests her head on Polly's shoulder. You know, the ancient Egyptians were incredible astronomers. This pyramid is oriented to 2 bright stars in the north so that Khufu's soul would rise up. Vega! Polly cries out their old catchphrase. Vega, their guiding star, watching down on them through the years. Vega, Vega, Vega. Juno's face softens. Ju, Polly says, you would tell me if something's wrong. Of course. Juno smiles, but Polly senses the tension in her. Oh, I'm fine. I really am. It's like walking on eggshells around him. He's obsessed with this bally war everyone says is coming. It thinks it's inevitable, Polly says. That's why they posted him here. Be brave, Paul, he said to her on the train from Alexandria. I'm not going to let anything happen to me, not now that I've found you. Then we're all in it together. Juno hauls Polly up and gestures down the perilous slope. Shall we?
Oh, it's just so beautiful. And I just, there's lots of places we could start. But I suppose the first off, I'd say just where the inspiration came from for the Golden Hour.
I've been really fascinated by ancient Egypt since I was a tiny child. I grew up in Devon and in the Exeter Museum, which, if you can imagine, in the olden days, it had sort of dark wood cases with stuffed birds of paradise, and it was all very jumbled together. And they had this amazing sarcophagus there. So to a sort of 4 or 5-year-old, it just blew my mind. It was so colourful and beautiful, and the idea that there was somebody in there. I think it just it really captured my imagination at an early age. And then I've been lucky enough to live and work in the Middle East most of my life. So it's really sort of drawing on a lifetime of experience living overseas and just that early kind of fascination.
Because, the settings in the Golden Hour, they're just so evocative and so really beautifully captured. But you're also writing around different time periods and locations. So as a writer, how do you organise your writing and your kind of mind and your thoughts to be able to do that? It's a lot, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I love the research. At some point you actually have to stop yourself like cruising books for more books to buy. And, you go down these wonderful rabbit holes. But it's really, I love a dual timeline, particularly because I'm very kind of interested in the ripple effect of events through history. So I think it's interesting being able to sort of jump ahead 30, 40 years and look back and see the how everything affected everybody.
So practically though, do you have what's your writing space look like? Do you have to kind of map out the 2 different timelines? How do you be able to write both of those things? Do you kind of write one narrative then write another? How do you get your kind of head into those 2 different spaces?
Well, I think with historical fiction, it's all very much built around the structure of history. Yeah. So you've got that kind of as the scaffolding for the story. So you know which events you've got to get absolutely right, because otherwise there's always somebody who will write in and say, "Oh, I don't think that happened," quite like that. So you've got to be bang on with the dates and the factual part of the story. So once I have that, it's a question of kind of weaving the plot together so that it's a satisfying story.
So do you, with the kind of historical side of things then, do you fact check as you're going along, or is it kind of a process that you do after you finish your first draft, for example?
It's interesting. I mean, I think to begin with, I start very, very broad. So if I know, for example, I'm looking at Egypt in the 1930s, I'll read kind of very broad history, and then it's like twisting the lens of a telescope, that you're constantly narrowing your focus and sort of pulling into the tiny details. So you know vaguely where you're going, but I love it when the story surprises you. And quite often if you're sort of winging it, if you're pantsing it a bit, you can then go back and find out actually there are sort of historical facts that you can weave in that work with the story that you started crafting.
You're I think that listeners will probably got a sense of that from the part that you read, but it's so very cinematic, I think. Like I can really, when I'm reading it, I can just really visualize it. And that doesn't always, I don't think that always happens. So do you use image prompts as well when you're working?
Oh, big time. Yeah. I mean, back in the day, it was sort of corkboards and, cutting things out. Now I tend to use Pinterest a lot. So I have boards and hidden boards for all the novels that I want to write in the future. And I find it very creative that if it's like a sort of shortcut into the story. If you have a scroll through the images, I tend to write quite cinematically anyway. My background's visual art. So I see the story. It's almost like transcribing it.
That's really interesting that you've got a visual arts background. That makes a lot of sense actually now.
Well.
But the Pinterest boards sound like they could be another a rabbit hole in of themselves. I definitely think I could lose hours and hours procrastinating with that. But it's all part of the process.
It is. I think it's a valuable part of the process. The hours that you spend on Pinterest getting lost in beautiful images. It's all part of the process.
Yes, I like to think about that as with most of my kind of procrastinations as well, that, retrospectively, definitely part of my process.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, you said about kind of like the research process and obviously having lived in the Middle East as well, kind of drawing on that as well. But in terms of like how you read recreationally, are you a historical fiction reader yourself, or do you read outside your written genre, as it were?
Well, I read very, very broadly. I've got a sort of endlessly a sort of monkey mind, and I'm very curious about all sorts of things. That I love historical writers like Victoria Hislop, and I tend to read quite a lot of older fiction, sort of Olivia Manning, or I love a bit of sort of Mary Wesley and Elizabeth Jane Howard, and those kind of real sweeping epic sagas that you get yourself lost in completely. But I also read poetry every day because I think that's it's a great way just to keep your brain tuned up. It's almost like doing daily exercises.
Yeah. What kind of poetry do you listen to, or how would you kind of like curate the poems that you read, or is it more random than that?
It depends. I mean, I've finally got all the books together after years and years living overseas. So there's a big poetry shelf that, I sort of pull things from. I've read a lot of Wendy Cope recently. I've just bought her collected poems, which are amazing. She's fabulous. And then, I love Rilke and Rumi, and particularly with the Middle Eastern theme of the book, I went back and read quite a lot of Middle Eastern poetry as well.
So you're saying you've just got your books back recently. So are you now surrounded by all your books again?
I am.
Oh my God, that must be just such a joy.
It's like having the family in one place.
Imagine. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, it was funny. At one point we had 3 different storage containers in 3 different countries. And bringing the library back together, I found sort of books in triplicate or 4 copies of some really favourite books. So that they're all in one place now, which is very exciting.
Oh well, congratulations! Yeah. That sounds brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so, do you write every day?
Yes, I do. Yeah. No, I'm quite disciplined, and at the moment I'm writing a book a year. So with historical fiction, that's sort of split really between research time and writing time. So I've got different novels at different stages. So yeah, every day.
What does that look like? What does your writing day look like?
Well, it's changed a bit since moving home. I mean, in the Middle East, I had to get the kids up at 5:30 every morning to get them to school for 7:30 because it's so hot.
Bloody hell.
They're at school sort of during the first part of the day. So you could guarantee you'd be back at your desk by 8 o'clock in the morning, and you could write through till 12 when you had to go and get them from school. So it was a very kind of intense early start. I can't quite believe I've done it now looking back. So now it's a little bit more civilized. I normally, sit down by about 9 and start running through stuff in the morning. And then afternoons tend to do, catch up on admin and emails, and then read in the evening.
Nice. And have you got different writers measure kind of a successful writing day, obviously in different ways? It's like word count or just amount of time at the desk or so on. Is that what does that look like for you?
I think, if I'm I think novels go through different stages.
Yeah.
If you're very much kind of in that lovely flow state with the first draft and it's just kind of whizzing onto the page, I think normally about sort of 3,000 words is a really good day for me. If it's editing and it's feeling like you're pulling teeth, it can be slightly different.
It can be losing 3,000 words, can't it, at that stage? Much more painful.
Yeah, no, exactly. I've just chopped 20,000 words out of the work in progress at the moment. So,
how does that feel?
It feels like a really radical haircut. Definitely, it needed doing. And it's much better for it, but it was quite painful at the time.
Yeah, it's really tricky, isn't it? You have to keep reminding yourself it's just part of the process. It's part of the process. In the end, it's going to be a far better novel. But yeah, 20,000 words is a bit of a wrench, I imagine.
Yeah. No, it's the old sort of kill your darlings, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. I just wanted that. So, you've written editorial and reviews and columns for a wide range of different publications as well. How do you find the different process of writing in that way to writing fiction?
I think, it's good training, writing features and, certainly writing a regular column, because it's that discipline that you've got to turn out X number of words by this deadline. So I don't, there's no such thing as writer's block. If you've got a contract and you've got a deadline to produce something, you make it happen. I think it's I quite like writing short stories as well, and it's very satisfying doing something that takes a week to get right rather than 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. I'm just thinking with that kind of if you're kind of looking at kind of writing a book a year, are you, while you're writing one, are you then thinking about the next? Is there kind of does your brain have to become kind of finely tuned of like having more than one track open with your stories, or do you have to get to the end of one before you can think about the next one?
I've got several books at different stages constantly, and it's a bit like having a sort of revolving, like in theatres when they have revolving stages.
Yeah.
So you've got one cast and you sort of shunt them off to the side, and the next one comes along. So I like it. I find it very creative working like that.
I can imagine it keeps things very fresh, being able to write more than one thing, that you don't get kind of stale in what you're writing, I guess. But how do you have to kind of wake up in the morning and think, right, I need to think myself into these characters today? You wouldn't write more than one book, be working on more than one project in a day, would you? Or do you do that?
No, I think that otherwise they'd start sort of, I don't know about you guys, but I can't read fiction when I'm writing fiction, because I think writers are quite permeable, and you tend to pick up the sort of voice of whatever you're reading. So I think I keep the books quite distinct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a total panic, isn't it? That you'll be writing something, thinking like, God, this is fantastic. And then you think, oh shit, no, that was a book I was reading last week. It's not my story at all.
That's not me. Exactly.
And so you're with the characters then that you've got them, carrying them around with you and so on. And how does that feel when you've kind of finished a project and you've got to swap onto your next characters? Do you kind of feel like you've had enough of them by then and you're ready for your fresh cast, or do you mourn them?
I don't know if you found this, but it's interesting. Not all characters stay with you, but Juno and Polly came very fully formed from the get-go, and it still feels like they're around. I think it would be I don't think there's a sequel to this book, but I think they were very, very fully formed, and they came fully rounded.
Yeah.
And I think some characters do stay with you. I mean, it's interesting when people read the books and they say, "Oh, what happened next?" And I think that's a lovely thing. If you feel your readers feel like the story is going to carry on and that the characters have got this own life, you've created the world well, and I think that's lovely. At some point when you stop writing, the book becomes the reader's. I feel that sort of very much with the Golden Hour now. It's having been in my brain for 3 or 4 years, it's out there and it's got its own life.
Yeah.
Do you have a dialogue at all with your readers? Did they kind of engage with you online or anything like that?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I'm on all of the social media channels at Kate Lord Brown, and it's lovely hearing from people. I've been doing a lot of library visits recently.
Oh, great.
And a couple of festivals so far, and it's fantastic. I love getting out and meeting people because half the time, the lovely thing about 20th century historical fiction is there are people in the audience who've lived through it.
Yes.
So you hear the most amazing stories from people. It's really touching.
I guess that comes back to that thing about kind of historical accuracy as well. If it's things that were within people's lived experiences, then yeah, it's more essential than ever, isn't it, to make sure that it's all kind of accurate and so on.
Oh, and we need to get these people's stories down as well while they're still here to tell them.
Yeah.
My first book was about the women who flew Spitfires, the beauty chorus, and I was lucky enough to talk to a lot of these women pilots, and I think the last one of them died recently at 103.
Wow.
But they were phenomenally. These women were so modest and so brave. It's just such a privilege talking to them.
Mm.
And that's one of the magic things as well about writing. Sometimes you can just kind of get yourself into these places and talk to people and visit things that you don't always have access to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with Golden Hour, I've always been really interested in Egyptology, but I studied art history. So, I spent a lot of time in the British Museum kind of poking around the Egyptian hall and everything, but to actually talk to real life Egyptologists, and it's a bit like talking to Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And all those stories about the tombs, and, it's been so fascinating.
And also kind of your descriptions of the dig site and so on as well is really... really detailed, and you can just really picture it.
Oh, good. I'm really bad.
So now, you said about how as a child you were really interested in Egypt. But did you always know that you wanted to write historical fiction, or how did that become?
Well, I've always written. I think even as a kid at school, I was writing love letters for my friends to give their boyfriends on the school bus. And writing really kind of insufferable plays for my friends and animals to take part in, that kind of thing. So I've always written, and then I joined a women's writing group in London called Women's Inc. That used to meet every week in the basement of Nomad Bookstore in Fulham, and that was when I really started writing. And I think because I'd done art history, I was very kind of interested in 20th century women's history, particularly. So it's a kind of natural marriage. I think curiosity about the period and how people lived, and quite a lot of the time with women's history, it's like, well, why don't people know about this? Why is it not recorded? Why don't people know that there were women who flew Spitfires or were war photographers in the Spanish Civil War? Or in this case, why does nobody talk about the women archaeologists who were in the Valley of the Kings? So it's really a combination of all of that.
It's a real, I don't know, kind of like rebellion and activism, isn't it? Being able to kind of put these women front and centre in books, so they're back out in people's conversations and back in their kind of like
reclaiming their narratives.
Completely, yeah,
100%, absolutely.
So you said, obviously that you've got other things that you're working on at the moment. How does that? I was just wondering about kind of your route into being published and so on. So obviously you've had quite a few books now, and yeah. So How did you have an agent to start off with? How did that work?
Well, it's been quite a long, slightly bitter laughter. It's been quite a long process. I started writing in London seriously in London about 20 years ago. So I sat down and I thought, okay, I'm going to write a novel. And I'd always read an awful lot, and I thought, okay, let's just give this a go, see if I can do it. So I got up before work, sort of hour early, and I was balancing my keyboard on my boyfriend's sock drawer in this little flat in London. And it turned out to be the most gargantuan novel. It was ridiculous. It was like 260,000 words, I think. And in those days, you had to print the manuscript out. If somebody asked to see the full manuscript, you literally had to. It was like a breeze block. Lugging this huge manuscript across London.
It costs an absolute fortune in printing as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, cost a fortune. And it was, it was enough to get me my first agent, which was wonderful. And then she was very, kind but firm, and said, "Look, this is huge. You can write, but go away and write something else." So I started writing The Beauty Chorus, which was the book about the women pilots.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, ITV in those days had something called the People's Author, which was a bit like X Factor for writers.
Oh, wow.
But it was Alan Titchmarsh instead of Simon Cowell, which is slightly less terrifying. So that was great. I mean, I was on TV with that, and I was a finalist.
And that was with your debut novel?
It was a memoir. So it was a sort of shorter piece that I'd written at the same time. And that was enough to get a publisher interested.
Wow.
So, and in the usual way of things, my husband had been made redundant. So we were, trawling the world, basically, trying to find a new job for him. And he'd been offered a job in the Middle East. And the night before I left with 2 small children to join him in the Middle East, we got the call from the publisher saying, "Yeah, okay, we're going to take you on for a 2-book contract."
Wow, what a day!
Talk about everything happening at once.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, how often does life do that, where it just completely throws you, everything at the same time? So that was my road to publication, basically.
Gosh, how exciting! So, new home, small children, 2-book deal. Yeah. That's
exactly.
That's no mean feat, is it? Embark on.
It was quite an interesting time. It really was.
And so after the 2-book deal, so you have your 2 books out in the world. Did you then remain with the same publisher, or then did your 3rd book then go out and submission to other publishers? Yeah,
it went out on submission because in the, we're talking about the sort of the roller coaster ride of publication. Yeah. Just as the 2nd book of the 2-book contract was being finished, the entire editorial team left to set up a new publisher.
Oh, wow.
So editors do move around, unfortunately. So we went to a 2nd publisher for the next 2 books. And by that time, the books were also being published overseas. So, for example, in Germany, all my books have stayed with the same publisher, which has been really lovely. But I think as a writer, perhaps this has been your experience as well. You do have to kind of, you imagine somehow that your trajectory of success will be a nice kind of steady upward slant, but actually it's way more like a story mountain or a roller coaster.
Very much so. Yes, it's not for the faint-hearted, is it?
Yeah. And I think it's that resilient. Years ago, a film director said to me, "You've got to zip up your rhino suit as a creative person," and I think that's a really good way of thinking of it. You've got to have a skin that's tough enough to deal with the stuff that gets thrown at you on the business side of writing, but you've got to keep that kind of soft, creative heart.
Yeah, that's the tricky part, isn't it? Kind of resilient on the outside, but kind of malleable enough to write like the beautiful stories on the inside as well.
Yeah. And it's, I think maybe that's something that comes with age.
Yes.
I think it's, my first book was published when I was, 39, I think. And, by midlife, you've lived a lot, you've loved a lot, and you've had your heart broken, and, you know that you're resilient and you can survive and you've got something to say.
And yeah, there's a lot of life to draw on, isn't there, to be able to kind of channel back into your writing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's really good to kind of obviously it doesn't feel good, but it's good for our listeners to know that that there are the ups and downs, because you can kind of only think about the massive debuts who are really successful, and then every single book kind of goes in at the number one, or it's all very straightforward. So it's good to kind of dispel those myths a little bit.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, all power to them. And I think it's some people, there's an awful lot of the publishing process that's totally beyond your control. And it's very easy to sort of get hooked up on the idea of success as publication or chart position, or I think it's good to be aware of what's going on around you, and it's good to know that there are these kind of huge debut deals, but just hold your own course and keep doing your best work.
Thinking about people who are kind of new to writing or just looking to get their work out there, what would be your advice to kind of first time authors?
I would say just enjoy the process, write books that you would love to read yourself, and, just enjoy doing good work, because there's an awful lot out there that is totally beyond your control, and it's nothing that you can influence. But if you know that you're doing your best work and you're putting it down, that's its own reward.
It has been such a joy talking to you, Kate. I'm just thinking, I know that you've mentioned before, like your socials, but if people want to find you, how do they find you?
Well, I'm published by Simon & Schuster, so you can find my author and page on Simon & Schuster's site, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads, and at Kate Lord Brown.
Brilliant. And we'll pop all that in the show notes as well, so people can find you. And
Lovely.
Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you, Kate.
Oh, thanks, Anna, and thanks, Sam. It was really lovely chatting with you.
Thank you for listening.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell your writer friends about us.